Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to another Quran study. God willing, today we'll be reading from Surah 26, verse 4. Let's all seek refuge in God from Satan the rejected. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. If we will, we can send from the sky a sign that forces their necks to bow. The Quran's mathematical code. When a reminder from the Most Gracious comes to them that is new, they turn away in aversion. Since they disbelieved, they have incurred the consequences of their heedlessness. Have they not seen the earth and how many kinds of beautiful plants we have grown thereon? This should be a sufficient proof for them, but most people are not believers. Most assuredly, your Lord is the Almighty, most merciful. MashaAllah. So, as you can see, the subtitle talks about the Quran's mathematical code, and we understand from the reaction of the people in the world, how the mathematical miracle has been responded to by all the disbelievers. And God is saying that since they have disbelieved, they have incurred the consequences, right? And we will see in our lives, hopefully or not, but either way, these people will have suffer their consequences. One major prophecy, as we know, is the smoke that is going to come to pass for such people, which is inevitable. But then also, there will also be, individual annihilation for people who did not believe in the miracle as they should have and still ended up becoming hypocrites or disbelievers. And these people will all suffer the retribution. And also, the verses following that, God is telling us about His proofs. Like on earth, have you seen the earth? The earth itself is a living proof of God's omnipotence and His awesome power. And if we really think about it, like God says, have you seen on earth how many kinds of beautiful plants we have grown there on, right? And so if we think about the beautiful plants that are there, just the fact that they're there alone, should be proof for us, but the fact that they're also beautiful, shows an intricate and deliberate design by God, right? When you see the beautiful, colorful flowers and the beautiful, colorful fruits and fragrant smells of those flowers, imagine if there were flowers in this world that just smelled terrible or didn't smell at all. But these have a beautiful scent, and the scent has a very definitive purpose, is to attract the insects that pollinate, for allow the bees and things to come, and for us obviously, to get pleasure from smelling these flowers and using those fragrances and other things, to make many other things. God has put all these things in our service, and these are all proofs for us. If you look at the symmetry and the design of all of these plants, you could see God's deliberate design. Like you could see, for example, in the spirals of all those flowers and the leaves and all the different plants, how the golden ratio or God's signature is present here. Because the golden ratio itself is also ties to the mathematical miracle of 19 and the number 19. But then having seen that ratio being consistently found in all of the different plants and beautiful flowers and trees, there's so much for us to learn from. And if we're looking for proofs, look at the flowers and how they're used. These are not just pretty things, right? It was different if something just haphazardly came up and you thought it was pretty. But it's not just pretty, it is very functional, right? Imagine it's like someone designed a car, but the car did its work, but it was ugly, right? And you say, yeah, this car just happened to it got created by its own, or something that was just very pretty but doesn't do anything. Yeah, that could happen too. But something that's pretty and it has a very definitive function. It has specific, organs and parts that are doing specific things. For example, think about the pollination. How there's male and female, and how it fuses together to become a fruit. I mean, how could that happen, right? Without God being deliberately doing all of this and controlling this entire process. I mean, how does even a seed know how to turn into a flower or a fruit, right? On its own, nothing happens on its own, right? So God is guiding all of this. And when we think about God hasn't just created one or two. I mean, He has created so many different species that we just keep continuing to discover new species every single day, right? So if you really, really start thinking about that, that in itself is proof for people. So God says, haven't they seen the earth? Haven't they seen how all these beautiful plants on earth that we have created? This should be sufficient proof for people to believe in God, right? Simply, people can't believe in God. I mean, people say they believe, but they don't, right? But if they really looked at, things so simple, like looking at a flower, they would believe, it's God's design. God says, most assuredly, your Lord is almighty, most merciful. So, continuing on to verse 10 regarding Moses, God says, recall that your Lord called Moses. Go to the transgressing people, Pharaoh's people, perhaps they reform. He said, my Lord, I fear lest they disbelieve me. I may lose my temper, my tongue gets tied. Send for my brother Aaron. Also they consider me a fugitive. I fear lest they kill me. He said, no, they will not. Go with my proofs. We will be with you listening. Go to Pharaoh and say, we are messengers from the Lord of the universe. Let the children of Israel go. So, these verses are referring to Moses. We see that Moses was sent to Pharaoh's people to, give them the message. And we see that, Moses was hesitant. He was afraid in the beginning. And he did have, some reservations. He thought that, he would either lose his temper, which was a real possibility. We do see Moses, having a little bit of a temper. And then we see that, he had a speech impediment, as we can see in verse 13. And he says, help me with my brother, and God was kind enough to give him a partner to support him in this, and which was his brother Aaron. And then also, God reassured him of his protection, that even though he had killed someone and he had fled the country at the time, previously when he was there, and he never went back. He was being told to go back there where he ran away from. Just because of the fact that they wanted to kill him, and God told him to go back so that he can give the message. And God gave him the confidence to go back and tell them that they're God's messengers, and then they should let the children of Israel go. He said, did we not raise you from infancy, and you spent many years with us? Then you committed the crime that you committed, and you were ungrateful? He said, indeed I did it when I was astray. Then I fled when I feared you, and my Lord endowed me with wisdom and made me one of the messengers. You are boasting that you did me a favor while enslaving the children of Israel. Pharaoh said, what is the Lord of the universe? He said, the Lord of the heavens and the earth and everything between them. You should be certain about this. He said to those around him, did you hear this? He said, your Lord and the Lord of your ancestors. He said, your messenger who is sent to you is crazy. He said, the Lord of the east and the west and everything between them, if you understand. He said, if you accept any god other than me, I will throw you in the prison. He said, what if I show you something profound? He said, then produce it if you're truthful. He then threw his staff, whereupon it became a profound snake. So when Pharaoh when Moses went to Pharaoh to have this conversation, we see something really interesting, right? And that Pharaoh is not focusing on the message and not focusing on God's plan and everything else, but he's just attacking Moses' character and just turning it upon Moses. And Moses, instead of defending his ego, we see that he accepts that, yeah, I said I did it when I was astray, and then God guided him, and made him a messenger, so he made a mistake, it wasn't something that he purposely killed him, and then he repented anyways right after this happened, realizing that this was Satan's scheme to try to maybe divert him. Maybe Satan knew that he was, going to do all these things, and he wanted to create something so that, Moses wouldn't be able to give these people the message and for submission to prevail this way. And we see that either way, and this is all speculation anyways, but either way, Moses was able to come in accordance with God's plan, and God guided him. So this also shows to us that, if it's God's plan for something to happen, God will make sure that it does happen, and if Satan tries to interfere, Satan's power is nil as compared to God. If God wills something must happen, Satan can't do anything, right? God is going to make sure that, everything that he plans. So whatever Satan wants to do, Satan can only do if it's God's will for this thing to happen, if it's in accordance with it. But if God wants something else to be done, he's going to definitely let it be done. For God, everything is possible. Even when it's against all odds, God will make things happen, just the fact, the whole plan, think about how Pharaoh's life himself was taking place, like he was being raised by Pharaoh, which in itself is almost like a miracle, and seeing how, her mother had to throw him into the box for him to end up there. This was all part of God's plan, right? It was nothing coincidence. And God was making sure all that happened, and Satan couldn't do anything about that. So then when Pharaoh and Moses had this conversation, it's interesting that, Pharaoh thinks so highly of himself and thinks he's so good, that, he did him a huge favor, and he's boasting about it, That's another thing that you will never see believers do, is boast about how nice they have been to other people. You shouldn't have to do that, if you're nice, let's say, but he was doing it just to show how great he is, right? He was infatuated with his ego, and we can see that in his speech, how he was a narcissistic individual and a tyrant, as God calls him in the Quran. And obviously, such people have a very, very high opinion of themselves, right? And so we can see here that, he said that he said, did we not raise you from infancy, and you spent many years with us? Then you committed the crime, then you committed, and you were ungrateful. So he is being told that he was unappreciative, that he was ungrateful, and he committed that crime, and then he left. He's saying, look, we did all these things for you, we raised you and took so much care of you, and then you ruined it, in other words. And he wants to belittle Moses. And subhanAllah, Moses' response is very straightforward. He says, yes, I was wrong, I did it myself, but now, God made me a messenger and allowed me to repent and reform. He gave him wisdom after that, so he says he was also immature at the time. And so now he says, you're boasting that you did me a favor by doing all these things, but what about all these people that you have enslaved? I mean, he was mistreating them. Like, I mean, it's an understatement, right? He had enslaved these people, and he was inflicting them with the worst persecution. I mean, even killing his children, and stuff. You know, they were just very. He was a tyrant, right? And so all these things that they were doing, I mean, they were just very evil people, and Moses knew obviously what they had been doing. And so he's like, yeah, you're telling me, oh, you've been so nice to me and this and that. And what about all these other people? So he said, and then he starts mocking God, right? And he says, and then he starts, ridiculing the messenger by saying that he's crazy. So then also in verse 29, we see that Pharaoh himself wanted to be worshipped, and he says that if you want any other god other than me, I will throw you into prison. He wants to kill him, wants to imprison him, basically. And then Moses showed him the proof. Moses showed him the snake, his staff turning into a live snake, right? A living snake. And this should have been a very strong proof for anybody, to believe in God and to believe that someone was a messenger. Imagine if it happened in front of you, in front of your eyes. I mean, it's one thing to hear about it, but when it actually happened and you saw it with your eyes, you would feel like a very different person right away. And Pharaoh saw that, right? Then he also, in verse 33, we're going to read, says, and he took out his hand, and it was white to the beholders. He said to the elders around him, "This is an experienced magician. He wants to take you out of your land with his magic. What do you suggest?" They said, "Respite him and his brothers, and send summoners to every town. Let them summon every experienced magician." The magicians were gathered at the appointed time on the appointed day. The people were told, "Come one and all, let us gather together here. Maybe we will follow the magicians if they are the winners." When the magicians came, they said to Pharaoh, "Do we get paid if we are the winners?" He said, "Yes, indeed, you will even be close to me." Moses said to them, "Throw what you're going to throw." They threw their ropes and sticks and said, "By Pharaoh's majesty, we will be the victors." Moses threw his staff, whereupon it swallowed what they fabricated. The experts see the truth. The magicians fell prostrate. They said, "We believe in the Lord of the universe, the Lord of Moses and Aaron." He said, "Did you believe with him before I gave you permission? He must be your teacher who taught you magic. You will surely find out. I will cut your hands and feet on alternate sides. I will crucify you all." They said, "This will not change our decision. To our Lord we will return. We hope that our Lord will forgive us our sins, especially that we are the first believers." So, mashallah, we see that, then he also took out his hand. It was white, completely without any kind of blemish. And that, again, was another proof for him, but he thought he's just pulling magic tricks, right? And you can see this is nothing like, pulling magic tricks. I mean, you can't turn a lifeless thing into a living thing. Nobody can do that, right, as magic. And having his hand completely turn white, without any kind of blemish, like his actual hand turning white, I mean, that's not a magic trick. And then putting it back and it's not, so then the elders around him, like elders are apparently these wise people that were his council, right? I mean, they suggested, they're part of like his cabinet, or in other words. And so they suggested that, sorry, there's cleaning going on here. So they suggested that they should have this gathering with all the magicians, and then they'll produce magic, and they wanted to humiliate Moses in front of everybody. But instead, it backfired on Pharaoh, because Pharaoh lost in front of all these people, because his magicians couldn't do anything, because they tried to produce the magic, which was just a bunch of tricks, with the illusion of your eyes, trying to make it look like it's moving, like the sticks and ropes, and then the actual snake that came out from that staff, swallowed everything that they made, all their sticks and everything. Imagine. I mean, even a regular snake couldn't do that, right? And then Pharaoh still doesn't believe, right? But all these magicians believed, of obviously seeing all of that, because how can you explain that with magic? Magic is when you do these tricks with your hands and stuff, but now you have something moving around and eating stuff, it's not magic, right? And so Pharaoh at this point could not kill his ego to accept that he was wrong, and to believe, and his ego was so big that he thought, he wanted to be the only God to be worshipped. He didn't want to let go of his power and his control and his tyranny and his slaves, and so. But all the experts recognize the truth, and then we see how Moses' people responded to Pharaoh's reaction. Pharaoh said that. Pharaoh was enraged that these people believe without his permission. Which obviously we understand that people should have their freedom of religion, but we can clearly see that you weren't allowed to believe anything against the permission of Pharaoh, right? And then he says, "I will cut your hands and feet on alternate sides." I mean, how cruel would that be, right? But look at the strength of the faith of the people at the time who were there. Even though we see later on that Moses was left with only 2 people as real believers. The others went astray. At that time, they were all very strong, and we can see resemblances to that with the time of the Messenger of the Covenant, for example, right? But there were so many of these people that believed at the time, and they were actually, you can see from their dialogue that they were strong believers at the time. They said, yeah, go ahead, what if you kill us? You can't do anything. God will forgive us and we'll still go to heaven, and so what, but clearly they didn't care about the threats that Pharaoh was giving, understanding and witnessing God's awesome power. Verse 52 says, we inspired Moses, travel with my servants, you will be pursued. Pharaoh sent to the city's callers, proclaiming, this is a small gang, they are now opposing us, let us all beware of them. The inevitable retribution. Consequently, we deprive them of gardens and springs, and treasures and an honorable position. Then we made it an inheritance for the children of Israel. They pursued them towards the east. When both parties saw each other, Moses' people said, we will be caught. They said, no way. My Lord is with me. He will guide me. We then inspired Moses, strike the sea with your staff, whereupon it parted. Each part was like a great hill. We delivered them all. We thus saved Moses with all and all those who were with him, and we drowned the others. So praise be to God. If you think about what happened, it was incredible how God allowed the people of children of Israel to be liberated through this miracle, right? God didn't even want Pharaoh to, I guess, really have any credit in any of this, right? And so it had to happen by force, and Pharaoh had to be drowned for his actions, for as consequences. I mean, this is God's inevitable retribution, right? So the fact that the retribution is inevitable, right? That's not just for Pharaoh. That's for anybody who doesn't believe, right? Inevitably, the retribution comes, So someone who's put in a position to believe or not, is in a very critical point in his life. You're at the crossroads between heaven and hell. We're at the crossroads in general while we are here on earth, right? Halfway to hell, But literally in your life, this is the point in your life where you could go really high up in your ranks with God, or you could go down to the lowest pit of hell, right? So, and we see that obviously people who will disbelieve will end up choosing to go to hell, right? Because it's a choice. God doesn't put anybody to hell, but these people insist on disbelieving. And we can see Pharaoh insisted on disbelieving. He strove with all his power, with all his army and everything to fight God, instead of accepting the message, to fight the messenger, and inevitably the retribution will follow for those people, right? So what does it say about our times and what happened with the messenger of the covenant, and how people responded to him, and how people fought against him, and how people campaigned to destroy his character with all the lies and the rumors and allegations? It's something that they cannot expect to get away with. Obviously, people who were involved in this, had terrible lives and terrible consequences within their lives, as we know some of them. And then also we know in general, the people, especially the Arabs, are dismissed from God's grace because they were the main force that was actively opposing. And with the amount of money that they invest in religion, in controlling these people, also was spent to destroy the message. It's amazing because you can't even hear about the mathematical miracle. Now there's information on the internet, right? But even though the mathematical miracle gained so much popularity at the time that it came out, it was in newspapers and universities and everywhere, but now nobody knows about it because afterwards nobody knew about it. Right now, with the advent of the internet and God's plan, obviously, people are finding out, and more and more people are accepting submission, right? But maybe 20 years ago, it couldn't be found because they had destroyed all evidence. They didn't allow any of this. People would be killed, or imprisoned. If they found out. They still definitely, all of these things will still happen. But the thing is that their main threat was gone now, and then frankly it came to a point where they could no longer control it. Right, as he said, the cat is out of the bag, and they did try to stop him by trying to kill him, thinking that they are stopping the message from spreading, right? But the message spread even faster, after that, quietly, right? And now it's just all over the internet. Anybody can find it, and it's only a matter of time. More and more people are going to accept submission. It's time for the mathematical miracle and submission to prevail. But my point here in bringing that up is that there's retribution coming for these people also. All these things that they did and how they've deviated from accepting the truth, and how they're fighting against it with pushing their religion, pushing their false doctrines on people. We can see, how cruel it is. But eventually they're going to see the retribution that follows. God willing. So with this, God willing, we see that when when both parties saw each other, Moses' people said, "We will be caught." And he said, "No way, my Lord is with me, he will guide me." And God says, "We then inspired Moses, strike the sea with your staff, whereupon it parted. Each part was like a great hill." So think about this example, how it seemed like this was the end, I'm sure like Pharaoh must have thought at that time that now he got it. Sorry, can you guys mute, please? I can hear someone in the background. All right. Okay, so yeah, so we can see that, there you could be in a situation where you would feel that now this is it, like you feel like you're trapped in some kind of a situation, maybe similar to Moses, where he was being chased around and felt like, for other people that now they're going to get caught, but it wasn't God's plan, obviously, and God rescued the believers, because what would happen to them if Pharaoh's army caught up with these people at that time? I mean, all of these people would be like, as Pharaoh said, he would like crucify them or cut their hands and feet on alternate sides and all these things, right? Including Pharaoh, definitely, right? And so God saved these people from this retribution, and instead, God allowed, Pharaoh and his people to die at that time, and they were met with annihilation. So, this is showing us God's power. I mean, this should give us all assurance that, it is God's plan to support the believers, to support the truth, against falsehood. And that, God will always protect the believers. I mean, if they're in a situation where they feel like this is the end, eventually, God's victory will come and the believers will be rescued, And mashallah, the Messenger of the Covenant has given some really great examples of that and how he explained this, and he even said, like, even if there's a situation where, like, there's a nuclear explosion, imagine, and there are believers there, like, God will make sure that they're somehow saved. And, and says you can have similar experience, for example, like you think that you're getting caught, and maybe God will send someone like a rescue helicopter or something to come and rescue you, and this is kind of exactly the same as what happened to these people. I mean, imagine, how there was a bridge created for them and they were able to just walk like nothing, across the sea. And then, right at the same time, as soon as, Pharaoh's army tried to catch up with them, they were wiped out. And just they were wiped out, not the believers, right? So selectively, God annihilated these people. God can control when it's time for someone's retribution. And obviously, God knows, who deserves the retribution. And make sure that if it's just one individual or a group of people or entire community, that they get annihilated as a result, which is inevitable. It's God's system, and we can see that, everything is in accordance with God's plan. Obviously, God gives people a certain amount of time, to confirm their sinfulness and to give them enough rope, so to speak, to hang themselves. But after that time is up, then the time is up, and then they're met with the decision. And we see in this case, the decision was to drown Pharaoh's people and to make the children of Israel at the time victorious, and give them God's support and save Moses and Aaron, and the people who believe with him. So with this, God willing, I will end here. And if you guys have any comments or questions, please feel free. Thank you.
MashaAllah, brother. Very good.
Thank you. Any questions for anyone?
Brother, up to what verses we read today?
So we
You
read
read?
up until verse number 66
Okay,
on
60.
26.
Okay.
Mm.
So I have a question on like last verse
Uh-huh.
66. So, and we drawn the others.
Mm-hmm.
So we drawn the other, that means the people of Moses, So my curiosity is, so
The
is
others
there
means the people
they,
of Pharaoh, not the people of
oh
Moses.
yeah. Sorry,
Yeah,
sorry. People of Pharaoh, yeah.
yeah.
So people of Pharaoh, yeah. So so were there any people like below 40 years old, or all above 40 years old?
We don't have that information. But if they
Okay.
were people under 40, yeah, they go to heaven, right? So,
Okay. So, yeah. So it doesn't matter, yeah, sometimes, yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so anyone has any comments or questions? Um, are there any maybe off-topic questions from anyone? I know John is traveling today. Usually he has some comments, but anyone else has any comments? So Abdullah, Brother Abdullah has posted something. Mm, mm. Says, I have a question. Moses ended up with only 2 believers. Since God mentions about the magicians who believed, can these 2 be magicians? I mean, they could be magicians. We don't know if they were magicians, but they could also be like, one was Aaron, right, his brother. Well, maybe that you could exclude him, but there was also his wife and someone else, and so, but we don't know who these people were.
Yeah, that question also, I was thinking a couple of times.
Hmm.
Yeah, so all the musician who prostrate, who believe, Moses. So after some time, they also became again disbeliever, most of them, something like that, because they again start, when Moses went for 40 days, God called him,
Mm-hmm.
and they, you know, they worshipping the, that,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So I think, so what about those musicians? So
Yeah.
they
So I mean,
became again this.
we know that many people that were there, they afterwards, like, they did just become very rebellious, right? And the rebelliousness started uh, with the children of Israel at the time of Moses, uh, and it continued on after that, right? And it only became worse with time,
Mhm.
as we can see. Like, for example, if you look at Surah 5, verse 23, it says, it talks about the two believers, right?
Mhm.
It says, two men who were reverent and blessed by God said, just enter the gate. If you just enter it, you will surely prevail. You must trust in God if you are believers. Despite all the miracles they saw, they said, "O Moses, we will never enter it so long as they are in it. Therefore, go you and your Lord and fight. We're sitting right here." He
Mhm.
said, "My Lord, I can only control myself and my brother. So allow us to part company with the wicked people." He said,
Mhm.
"Henceforth it is forbidden for them for 40 years, during which they will roam the earth aimlessly. Do not grieve over the wicked people." Right. So I mean, there were just two men. I believe these were the two people, two believers, the two men that it says that uh, said, "Just enter the gate," and they refused to go, and so they were allowed to, roam the earth aimlessly. So they said, like, there were like 40 years or so. These people were just scattered around and not able to have any success. And
Mhm.
these were among definitely those people, right? Because there were more people than that crossed the sea, that were with them, that
Mhm.
just saw the miracles, and people who also worshipped the calf. There were more other people. Probably some of them repented at that time, but nevertheless, believers will never do such. True believers will never do things like that.
Mhm.
And God says, like, they hurt Moses. So, like, they wouldn't hurt a messenger of God. Like, one, you have to be righteous and respectful to the point that they actually, hurting him with their behavior. Like telling him, "You go, you and your Lord go fight." Like, how would
Mhm.
you talk to a messenger like that? And messengers inviting you to paradise, and then you're treating him like so bad like this.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. My understanding also almost same. Yeah, because even though it looked like some people believe, saw the miracle, but end of the day, after a couple of years, we don't know how many. So Satan duped them again. They believe something, but again they
Mm-hmm.
became disbeliever something.
Mm-hmm.
That's my understanding. End of that,
Yeah.
like only have,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, Moses are only two believers, real
Mm-hmm.
believers, but
Yeah.
even though they saw a lot of miracle, they believe something, but they became again disbeliever. So that's my understanding. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Also, I think that since we're on the subject, like, it's also important to remember, like, this is God's process of
Mhm.
sifting the believers from the hypocrites or the disbelievers. I mean, in this case, these people were hypocrites, right? That they
Mhm.
said they were all believers and they really weren't, and they didn't say we don't believe in your message, right? They still
Mhm.
pretended to be believing in Moses' message, but they just, with their actions, they proved against themselves that they were no longer believers. They didn't believe in God, and they didn't believe in His promise. And
Mhm.
so this shows to us, like, people always look at submission, not always, but, like, yeah, there's some people that will look at it and they're like, they feel sad, or they just show their dislike against how some people will leave uh, a group of submitters, or groups of submitters, and Of course, it's wrong to have division, you know, but we can see in these verses that actually I read, um, Moses actually says, let us part company with the wicked people. So obviously Moses also didn't want to be surrounded by such people, right? And he wanted to be surrounded by believers, just like everyone else. And so this is just a natural process, and the messenger of the covenants, says it's a sifting process. It's healthy, and it's nothing to like really feel sad about. And it's not like we're missing out or anything like that. It's good for us. Um, so and the verse I was referring to was 5:25. He says, "My Lord, I can only control myself and my brother, so allow us to part company with the wicked people." And obviously, these were the people who didn't care to join Moses, right? So then they were just left, and these people moved on from that point. And so there's also another question I think Brother Jaffer has mentioned about Eid, right? People were asking about the meat of the animal which is being sacrificed on that day. So the meat that is being sacrificed, the meat is dedicated to God, so it is not prohibited. It's one thing that they're doing it on a day that doesn't, they don't need to do it, but the thing is that we already understand the categories of the four meats. All the meats that are prohibited for us, there are the four categories, and this is not in any of those categories, so it's lawful to eat it. And if anyone makes it prohibited, then they're attributing a lie to God. And believe me, there are many people who are prohibiting this. There are many people that say they're submitters and they're prohibiting the meat, and we know that this is wrong. Like, they shouldn't innovate. And I know people, especially like they live in the Middle East and stuff, and they have preached to other people that they shouldn't eat the meat from Eid, and for whatever reason, but obviously they're prohibiting it, and it's creating an innovation, basically, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have also same understanding, because we have to see the product. The product is good. Product is like when they sacrifice, we know that they say in the name of God. They say Allahu Akbar. So we know that when they are sacrificing, so they sacrifice. They
Yeah.
so they have the God name. But their action is not good. Their action is not authorized. But when they sacrifice, so we have to see only when they are sacrificing, they are calling the name of God or not. So they said Allahu Akbar. So that means we can eat this product, this meat. That's my understanding. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it's so easy for Satan to dupe people with this, and he has duped so many people. Like, and the thing is, when you go down that route with prohibiting something, not that it really matters after you prohibited one thing. You can prohibit as many things as you want. It's the same as prohibiting one thing or 10 things, right? You just basically fell into the trap of Satan, and you become an idol worshiper by prohibiting something that God didn't prohibit, right? By upholding another source besides the Quran as a source of law. And the thing is, at that point, it doesn't matter how many things you prohibited, but people don't end up prohibiting just one thing. People with this kind of mentality will go on and prohibit other things, just like the other people have done before submission, right? Before us being submitters, there were people who believed, apparently. But just the same way we see that how they came about with so many different prohibitions at the end, it's one thing to say boycott something, people are talking about like the politics, and they're saying, okay, boycott Starbucks, and Starbucks can lose billions of dollars because they're not acting in a certain way or something like that, But you actually go about and saying something should not be eaten because it violates, our religious guidelines or something like that. You're making it a law of religious prohibition. We're not talking about dietary not a dietary prohibition, but I mean, like, we're not talking about, like, your dietary preferences. Like, let's say, you decide, I don't want to eat anything with too much sugar or something. You're actually prohibiting something, saying that, God doesn't want you to eat this. It's very, very serious. God says, who's more evil than those who fabricate lies and attribute them to God? And people have prohibited, of course, we know many people have prohibited the meat from the sacrifice. There's also people who have prohibited other foods that are non-animal products, that are not even living beings that can be dedicated to other than God, saying that they can be dedicated. That's another thing. Satan has duped so many of these quote-unquote submitters too with that. And then there's and then the list doesn't end here. Like, I was with this community and there were so many things I kept hearing from people, and I'm sure they still believe that. Like, they were even saying, like, we can't eat candy, that is shaped in a like, the the candy cane for Christmas, like, around Christmas time, they have this candy, just regular candy, right, with I think peppermint and stuff. But they make it in the shape of a cane with red and white colors, right? So like, no, the red represents the blood of Jesus and the white represents God knows what, and you can't eat that, And then so they go around and making certain prohibitions because they say it symbolizes these things, right? And so that's not what is the criteria for prohibition. The Quran is very simple and straightforward. And we already have the prohibitions, things that we can't eat, and as long as it's a sacrifice of a living animal that's dedicated to other than God. Like when we sacrifice an animal, we pronounce God's name, right? And so in the same way, like someone who wants to dedicate an animal to other than God, they will sacrifice it, and before they're sacrificing it, they pronounce the name of an idol. And saying the name of so and so, you're liberating this animal, sending him back to God, So that's an act that can only apply to living beings, because you can't like do this to an apple or a candy or whatever else, you may think. So only animals can be dedicated. So when it says food dedicated to other than God, that's only animals, anyways, right? Regardless of whether you call it food or you call it animals, only animals can be killed with a knife, for example, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, that one. I had, so many people actually had confusion about the food. So when I got the audio from the Messenger of Covenant, he explained. Then okay, so I agree with him. Then yeah. So this is for the test. Maybe you have some opinion, maybe you don't understand. So when you have opinion or the clarification from the messenger, then, and this is the thing, you believe or not. If you still keep on your opinion, so that means you don't believe in the messenger. Even though, so there's, I think God keep this for us to actually to test us. This is my understanding.
Yeah, mashallah. And another thing I want to mention here is that the audio that we found, right, initially was one of the earlier audios, right, that came out later, right? One of the earlier audios that came out later. And I went to attend this sermon before in LA. I no longer go there, but I went to attend the sermon, and they were giving, the person gave an entire sermon on how this was wrong, because they're saying because the audio was old, right? He says because this audio is old and the message came to him in stages and this and that, and they used it to make this long case. The whole entire first sermon was like to establish that, okay, the message comes in stages. And I was waiting in the sermon. I was like, yeah, definitely this person's up to something. He's gonna fire something at the end. And the second sermon, sure enough, like he targeted my sermon, which was about this, food prohibitions that I had given a couple months back. To explain that, and he just basically discredited the audio by saying that it was old, But the funny thing was that even though we had seen this information in the old audio,
Mm.
Now that I went back to listen to the audios again, having listened to the one before, I also saw that in the later audios. So the audio, which is like around 1989 or something, has the same information, exact same thing he's saying in the other audios too. But I don't know why people were covering that up, like nobody was talking about it, right? And so, but subhanallah, I mean, that information was not just in the older audios. This was also in the other audios too, you know.
Okay. So, brother,
So
you have two. Sorry, you have two audios with you. The
yeah, there's
earlier.
two audios, yeah. At
Okay.
least two audios. I mean, there's other audios too where he's talking about it, but the one where he explains, breaks down dedication is that two audios. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, one is old and one is new.
Okay. So, so it's uploaded in the Got Alone TV. Is there already that audio? Can I?
They have been there for years.
Okay.
Yeah. Though, I mean, those are the ones I'm talking about. The ones from the beginning, you know, the 50 audios, and it's one of them. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's yeah. Even though I joined another Quran study, and so some people still they keep their they want to stay their opinion. They say no, all food, any food, so it's not they don't want to believe the they don't want to take the messengers or messenger's opinion. So I don't know why, so
Yeah,
yeah.
because they're not believers. That's why.
Yeah, I don't say them directly, but so what, so that could be the reason. Otherwise, when you see something explanation, 100%, and so why you stick on your opinion? So you have to.
Yeah, exactly. You have to kill your ego, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I believe it's Quran study uh, number 24, if I'm not mistaken, at 53 minutes, maybe? Or no? Maybe no, that's not the one. I'll find it, God willing, and I'll share it with you.
Inshallah, thank you.
Yeah, so the first one that we were talking about, that one I already know. The one from 1982, that was number 67 at about 50 minutes, right? And then I have to give you the other audio from the later years.
Okay. So 1982 is like audio number 67.
Yeah.
Okay. The another one you said 24.
So this one
It's
was
not.
67 at 50 minutes, and the other one I'm going to confirm.
Okay.
Let me
Okay.
know, God willing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
Okay, so now you guys, except for, now so you guys should be able to listen to all the audios, videos, but also all the songs that came out in the new album. All of them are also in the section under the songs. So you should be able to see a lot of songs added in the new version of the app. And then maybe I can share my screen and show. So,
Yeah, I listen another day your song. Yeah, it's good, but sometimes I think the music sometimes music is too loud, brother.
which song are you talking about? The album,
Uh,
right?
yeah, I think God alone or something. I forget. I'll let you know the which song. It's very nice, but I
Okay.
think sound, yeah, the background sound little bit lower will be good. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Okay, so let's see. You guys can see my screen, right? Okay. So yeah, so I wanted to share also a few other things, right? So we have the some updates to the number 19 calculator also. So previously you could only enter just like a number, right? And it would tell you whether this number was a multiple of 19 or not, right? But now you can also add like entire mathematical expressions, right? So you can say like 19 plus 39 plus whatever, plus this, right? And it will tell you if this, he said, this adds up to be this number and, it's a multiple of 19 or not. So it can also like take expressions, and you can also like put stuff in like parentheses, so it's like, let's say I want to do like 18 plus 1, right? And let's say I'll multiply this by 19, right? So it's gonna do 18 plus 1 is gonna solve this first and then do the multiplication, right? So like we know that this has a reason, right? So if I did this, for example, this would not be a multiple, right? It's a different number, 19 plus 18, right? But this...
So can you share your screen? You cannot share
I am
screen.
sharing my screen. You can't see it?
No, I can't see.
I'm sharing it right now.
Why?
Yeah, maybe you can look at the YouTube recording afterwards also.
Okay,
Yeah,
no problem.
so you can see that. And then the others, anyone else is having issue or nobody else can see it, or it's just him? Okay, yeah, Abdullah says he can see it, other people can see. Okay, so then there's also the geometrical value calculator, so my computer is about to die anyways, so we should probably wrap it up soon. But just real quickly, so this will take Arabic, so you can add, for example, like if I want to see something about maybe, this is in English. Anyway, I'll just show you like geometrical value. So I'll paste, you can paste a verse here in Arabic, or you can type something in Arabic yourself, right? And it will tell you like, say I'm typing in Arabic, so it'll tell you how many words it is, how many times each alphabet is used, how many number of alphabets, how many number of words, and what is the total geometrical value of it, right? So if it's a multiple of 19, like any of these, if any of these is a multiple of 19, like, like for example, in this case, the alphabet is a multiple of 19, it's 19 letters. So it says it's 19 times 1, right? So there's a multiple here. So so that's another significant addition. Also for people that are on iOS, like there's some enhanced functionality, like if you are on your phone and you're listening to any of the videos or the audios, you can see, like, if you get out of the app while you're listening, previously it would stop playing, but now it will play in the background for iOS specifically, not talk about Android. It will play in the background, and you will also see a window, like a small window that stays on your screen in the corner somewhere, or you can drag it around on your phone, that you can still see the audio or the video playing, and you can use the app for the rest of the functions. So that's another thing that's been recently added. And also, like, there's some performance improvements a little bit, like in terms of the experience. Like if you want to jump to a surah or a verse, previously there was like, a few things you had to go through first in order to do that. So now you just put in like a verse number and a surah number and just hit go, and it will take you there. And then also the same thing with the random verse. There's also that. Okay, so God willing, with this, if there are no other comments or questions, God willing, we can end the study. So thank you all for joining us. God willing, our next English Quran study would be on Saturday at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. God bless you all. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. God bless you guys.